Hi everybody, today we are going to look at nonverbal communication. We all will accept this saying, action is more powerful than words. Yes, of course, sometimes nodding our head, our smile speak a lot than our words. Before getting into the lesson, we should understand the difference between verbal and nonverbal communication. Communication is generally defined by both a verbal and nonverbal component. Verbal communication often refers to the words we use in communication, whereas this nonverbal communication refers to the communication that is produced by some means other than the words, such like your eye contact, your body language, or sometimes your vocal cues like like that. So just let us go to the importance of nonverbal communication. As I told you earlier, action speaks a lot than your words. In a communication, receiver receives only 7% of messages effect through verbal means. Meanwhile, other 93% is carried out by nonverbal communication, and over 65% of the social meaning are communicated only through the nonverbal mode. Now, let us learn the important characteristics of nonverbal communication. All nonverbal behavior has message value. While we can refrain ourselves from speaking, we literally can shut our mouth, but it is impossible for us to stop behaving. Behavior, whether intentional or unintentional, it is ongoing. You cannot stop sending nonverbal messages. As long as someone is aware of your presence and is there to decode your nonverbal communication, you will definitely communicate. Even if you turn your back on the observer or remove yourself from his sight, of course you are communicating. Nonverbal communication is ambiguous. Although nonverbal clues are continuous and frequently involuntary, others can evaluate them in different ways. That is, what we communicate may be ambiguous and subject to misinterpretation. One nonverbal clue can trigger a variety of meaning. For example, wearing jeans can be a symbolic of a relaxed mood of a dress, or it can be social support of the westernized culture. When you are not ready to transmit your message through words, nonverbal communication will be there as the primary means of revealing your inner state. In fact, many of the people find it easier to communicate emotions and feelings nonverbally. We convey liking, attraction, anger, and even respect for authority nonverbally. For example, we usually look to the face to assess the other's emotional state. We look to the mouth to evaluate contempt. We look to the eyes to evaluate dominance and competence. We base our judgments of confidence and relationships closeness on our reading of gesture and posture, and we listen to the voice to help us evaluate both assertiveness and confidence. The nonverbal clues are definitely help to have a continuous flow of conversation. Just like nodding your head while you are observing the message during the interaction in an unconscious manner, as you are doing now. Nonverbal communication is meta-communicative. For example, a wink for mockery or covering our mouth with our hands to indicate that we are telling a secret. Although we may send nonverbal messages deliberately or accidentally, their meaning depends on how they are interpreted. Consequently, they fulfill meta-communicative functions, that is, communicate about communication, clarifying both the nature of our relationship and the meaning of our nonverbal messages and verbal messages. In fact, we have to accept this. That is, nonverbal clues carry approximately 2/3 of messages' communicative value. Even when used independently of words, as long as an observer derives meaning from them, nonverbal messages speak volumes. Of course, the amount of information conveyed varies according to their clarity and how receptive and perceptive the receiver is. Based on interpretation of our nonverbal clues, others may decide if they like us, if they listen to our ideas, or want to sustain or terminate our relationship. Yes. Now, let us go for the functions of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal clues can contradict or negate the verbal messages. When this happens, what is said and what is done are at odds, isn't it? Imagine the man who repeatedly said, "Hold me, hold me, hold me," but he backs away to avoid being held. And another example, we can say that the salesperson that just lost a deal screaming, "I'm not angry." While you listen to that, you can catch the point of contradiction. Each of these verbal messages is negated by the source's non-verbal behavior, isn't it? Each interaction represents a double message. The words say one thing, the non-verbal clues another. Non-verbal clues can regulate or control person-to-person interaction. Using non-verbal clues, we establish the rules of order or turn-taking during talk. With eye contact, gestures and voice, we control who should speak next and thus direct the flow of verbal exchanges. If I ask a question, I stop for a while for your answer. Meanwhile, you understand for what I am silent here. The regulatory skills of others influence our judgments of them. Then, non-verbal communication expresses the state of emotion of the person. Yes, of course. Then, non-verbal clues can emphasize or underscore a non-verbal or a verbal message. To say, when you raise or lower your voice or slow down your rate of speech so you can deliberately stress a series of words, you are using non-verbal clues to accentuate your words. Non-verbal clues can reinforce or complement a verbal message. With your keys and coat in your hand, you are announcing the crowd or announcing the other person in front of you that I have to leave now as you walk towards the car. So types of non-verbal communication. There are 5 things we have: kinesics, paralanguage, vocal interferences, spatial usage and self-presentation clues. Let us go for kinesics. Kinesics is the study of human body motion. It includes such variables as facial expression, eye contact, eye movement, gestures, posture and even walking speed. Valuable communicator information is contained in the look on your face, whether you stare or avert your gaze, whether your shoulders are straight or drooped, whether your lips are curved in a smile or signal contempt with a sneer, and whether your gait suggests eagerness or anxiety. The facial expression. The face is the main channel we use to decipher the feeling of others. Quite simply, faces talk. Chatter oozes out of there every moment. In fact, it is wise to depend on facial clues to facilitate person-to-person interaction. The face is also the prime communicator of emotion. Our ability to read the emotion depicted in facial expressions determines whether you will be able to respond appropriately to others' feelings. The eyes. Eye behaviors are a key part of interpersonal communication, as we use our eyes to establish, maintain and terminate contact. As with all nonverbal clues, the messages you send with your eyes may be interpreted in a variety of ways. Like eyes reveal the extent of interest and emotional involvement. Eyes influence judgments of persuasiveness and perceptions of dominance or submissiveness. Eyes regulate person-to-person interaction. The pupils of eyes are a reliable indicator of emotion. When we take an interest in what another is saying, our blinking rate decreases and our pupils dilate. To get the truth from the other person, we say, "Look at my eyes and tell me." Yes, it is true. Looking others in the eyes can help you appear more honest and credible. Gestures and posture. The body is in motion and at rest. We move and stand in distinctive ways, so distinctive that often others can identify us by our characteristic walk or posture. The movement and alignment of our body definitely communicate. Although some of our body's messages facilitate effective person-to-person interaction, the way you sit and the way you watch also matters during interaction. Then touch. It is an essential part of the nonverbal communication. Patting somebody's back means you deserve the person. When we don't know what to say to express our sorrow at the death of a friend or a relative, an embrace often speaks. Similarly, when someone asks, "What do you want to do tonight?" a shrug of shoulders frequently is used in the place of "I don't know." Touching signals the desire for closeness. As children, we likely were introduced to various touching, the no-nos. For example, we might have been instructed to keep our hands to ourselves around people and not to touch when around breakable items. However, touch remains an important tool in interpersonal communication, and the message it communicates are varied. Then paralinguistics, the messages of the voice. The messages that you send with your voice are known as paralanguage. Often it is not what you say but how you say it that determines an interaction's outcome. We rely on vocal clues to help us determine the real meaning of spoken words. Such clues are especially important when we are deciding whether someone is being sarcastic. And look at these words. Yeah, right. These words convey different meanings depending on whether they are spoken sincerely or sarcastically, or our interpretation of these words influences how we respond to the person who said that. The tone of the voice can help you communicate what you mean to convey, or it reveal thoughts you mean to conceal. It can reinforce or negate the words you speak. The sound of your voice communicates and reveals your emotional state, your attitude, personality, status, and interaction maintenance, or your needs. How you speak influences how others interpret your intentions, as well as how credible, intelligent, or attractive they judge you to be. Each of the elements of the paralanguage plays a main role in nonverbal communication, like pitch, volume, rate, articulation, pronunciation, hesitation, and even silence. Each plays a part in the impressions others form of you. Pitch is the highness or lowerness of the voice. It is similar to pitch on a musical scale. We associate higher pitches with female voices and lower pitches with male voices. We associate lower pitches with strength and maturity, whereas high-pitched voices with helplessness, tension, and nervousness. We all know in our home, mother's voice will be high than your father's, right? Although we each have a model or habitual pitch, our pitch varies that reflect our mood and interest in conversation. For example, we often lower our pitch when we are sad and raise it when we are excited. Contrary, if we are bored, we may speak in a monotone that reflects our lack of interest, and it is the voice's pitch that others use to determine whether you are making a statement or asking a question, or whether you are expressing concern or conviction. Your pitch expresses your emotional state, likely to say it can communicate anger or annoyance, patience, or even tolerance. Volume. The power of your voice is its loudness or volume also affects perception of the intended meaning. While some whisper their way through encounters, others blast through them. An individual who is typically loud may alienate others. Such a person is often viewed as overbearing or aggressive. Contrary, if you are soft-spoken, others may interpret your behavior as timidity. Thus, your volume can over or underwhelm, thereby causing others to turn you off in an effort to turn you down, or to lose interest in your words simply because they cannot comfortably hear them. Then rate. Speaking rate is the third vocal clue affecting the communication of the senders. Meaning, do you know, most of us speak at an average rate of 150 words per minute. When we speed up our speech exceeding 275 to 300 words per minute, it will be difficult for others to comprehend what we are saying, and our message will become useless. On the other hand, if we speak too slowly, others may perceive us as tentative or lacking in confidence or intelligence. Then articulation and pronunciation. Articulation is the way you pronounce individual sounds. Ideally, even during person-to-person contact, the sounds of your speech are sharp and distinct. When you fail to utter a final sound, like it in some words, fail to produce the sounds of words properly, or voice a sound in an unclear or imprecise way, perceptions of your credibility drop. Hesitation and silence. Hesitations and silence are the final paralinguistic variables that we consider here. Knowing when to give a pass is a critical skill. When nervous or tense, we may exhibit a tendency to fill all passes, often by inserting meaningless sounds or phrases such as you know, or okay in the effort to fill the voids. These sounds are known as non-fluencies or hesitation phenomena, disrupt the natural flow of speech and adversely affect how others perceive your competence and confidence. These brief periods of silence or pauses give us a chance to gather our thoughts. This is not to suggest that a pause's message is always positive. Sustained pauses, significantly extended periods of silence allow us to give another the silent treatment, a means by which we ignore a person's saying to him or her without using words. As far as I am concerned, you do not exist. Right? Then, spatial usage, proxemics. A proxemics researcher, Edward T. Hall, coined this word proxemics to indicate that proximity influences human interaction. The word itself refers to how we use the personal space around us as we interact with others, as well as how we structure the space around us in our home, office, and even our community. Generally, we use physical proximity and distance to signal either desire to communicate or disinterested in communicating. The closer we stand normally mean we like one another. Proximity or lack of it also indicates how dominant or submissive we are in a relationship. The more dominant we feel, the more likely we are to move closer to another. In contrast, the more submissive we feel, the less likely we are to decrease our interaction distance. Perceptions of friendliness or unfriendliness and extroversion and introversion, as well as our privacy and social contact needs, are also reflected in our spatial relationship. We have 4 types of distances: intimate distance, personal distance, social distance, and public distance. Intimate distance ranges from skin contact to 18 inches from another person. At this distance, physical touching is normal. Hugging your kid, leaning on your friend's shoulder, kissing your mother's cheeks, and so on, we can say. Personal distance, which ranges from 18 inches to 4 feet, is less proximate or personal than intimate distance. While we can still hold or shake the hand of another at this distance, we are most likely merely to converse informally. Then social distance extends from 4 feet to 12 feet. At this distance, we are less apt to talk about personal matters, more able to keep another at arm's length, and thus more likely to contact business or discuss issues that are neither private nor of a personal matter. Public distance, that is 12 feet and above, is the distance we use to remove ourselves physically from interaction, to communicate with strangers, or to address large groups. Public distance is which less likely than smaller distance to involve interpersonal communication. Then we have territory, that is isolation. Color, associations and connections. Color influences the communication. Color talks both to and about us. The colors we surround ourselves with and the colors we wear affect us both physically and emotionally. For example, research has found that when a person is exposed to pure red for extended periods, the nervous system is excited and blood pressure, respiration rate and heart rate rises. In contrast, when the person is similarly exposed to the dark blue, a calming effect occurs and blood pressure, respiration and heart rate fall. 44 colors may help compel us to move more quickly or slowly, help us relax, or cause us to become agitated. Colors do not evoke the meanings in all cultures. For example, whereas in the United States and European countries, brides routinely wear white, in Asian countries, white is the color of mourning and so not considered suitable for wedding. Then we have self-presentation clues. Physical appearance. Physical appearance is more important concept in non-verbal communication. If you are going for an interview, you should wear a good dress so that your physical appearance shows your confidence. A neat dress should be there. And time, it is the study of how we use time to communicate. Some of us are preoccupied with time while others regularly waste it. Some of us are typically early while others are chronically late. Some of us approach life with a sense of urgency while others prefer a more leisure pace. Yes, how do we manage and react to others' management of time? With the duration, activity and the punctuality, we have to show that the non-verbal communication. Non-verbal signals definitely vary from culture to culture. Just look at this picture. What does this symbol mean to you? In the US, it is a symbol of good job. In Germany, it is number 1. In Japan, it is number 5. In Ghana, it is an insult, And in Malaysia, the thumb is used to point rather than a forefinger. Okay, let us know how to improve our nonverbal communication. While you are sending messages, you should be so conscious of nonverbal behavior. You should be purposeful in use of nonverbal clues. Make sure nonverbals are not distracting. Match verbal and nonverbal communication while you are interacting with other person. Just have the nonverbal and verbal communication that are adapting to the situation. And while receiving the message, don't automatically assume what others are saying. Consider gender, culture and individual differences. Just pay attention to all the aspects of nonverbal communication while you are listening or while you are receiving the message. Use your perception checking. Just try to improve your nonverbal behavior so that you can attain a very good interaction or very good communicative skill in you. Thank you for listening.